If Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Barbarian, and In a Violent Nature had a fun night together, I'm pretty sure 9 months later, one of them would give birth to Dolly. So Dolly is the feature-length adaptation of director Rod Blackhurst's 2022 short film Baby Girl. It stars Fabian Therese and Sean William Scott as Chase and Macy, a couple who head out on what's supposed to be a romantic hike in the woods. Instead, they encounter a monstrous figure wearing a doll mask who abducts Macy with the twisted intention of raising her as its own child, just in a sadistic, doll-like manner. I went into this movie completely blind, just with the knowledge that it was a slasher. And like many horror films, it comes with some highs, some lows, and an absolutely unhealthy amount of dolls. So let's start off with the positives. One of the first things that stood out is that Dolly was shot on 16mm, which gives the movie a gritty grindhouse aesthetic. The Texas Chainsaw influence is easy to spot, and the textured film look really adds to the uneasy atmosphere of the movie. The premise itself is simple, and the movie wastes no time getting started. You get some brief character development, just enough to establish some connection with the characters before they're thrown into this absolutely twisted situation. Now, the cast is fairly small, so don't expect a high kill count, but the film still delivers some solid gore. And not only does it have some solid gore, it's got some gross scenarios that might make you recoil from the screen. There's stuff in this that's just downright demeaning and makes you question how long would you play along with this to survive. A few scenes even had me feeling like I could smell or taste what was happening on screen, which was bad, but in a good way. The movie also just feels dirty. Everything in this house and setting made me walk out of the theater at the end just wanting to take a shower. The practical effects are also solid, including one particularly gnarly moment that I think gore lovers will appreciate. I actually enjoyed the score too. It's eerie music that at times I'm almost certain you can hear voices murmuring Dolly, which adds a creepy layer to the atmosphere. Other moments drop the music entirely and are just silent, which I found added a bit of tension. And visually, the Dolly character works. The doll mask is unsettling, and you have some tug and pull moments where the character seems like they are genuinely trying to be compassionate, but they're obviously psychotic, so that doesn't last long. The character never speaks, so hand gestures are always used, and they add another layer of unhinged behavior to the character. We do get some brief moments of character growth with Macy. Without giving too much away, there's things she was unsure of in the beginning of the movie, but near the end, those uncertainties disappear and not only become very clear, but they become things that she wants. And with that, let's jump into some of the mixed stuff and the cons. We don't get much backstory on Dolly beyond a few lines early in the film. It may bother some. I saw it as intentional and maybe something saved for a sequel or prequel. However, it could leave some people feeling like the lore of the character is a bit thin. The biggest issue is the movie suffers from classic horror tropes like falling while running, making stupid decisions like, hey, what's that noise? I'm gonna go check it out. You stay here though, so we can get separated and be unable to help each other in case of an emergency. One of the main characters consistently makes decisions where I was just like, why would you do that? You have this brooding villain who moves incredibly slow but is able to catch up to someone who is running with ease, as well as take immense amounts of physical damage and almost never show a sign of it affecting them. There's also times where you feel like one of the main characters should be displaying a larger sense of urgency and seems to be forgetting about the situation they were just in. There are also a few CG shots that stand out in not a great way, and while the acting is generally okay, a few scenes fall a little flat. The movie introduces another character later on who seems important, but their relationship to Dolly is never clearly explained. It feels like they might be connected somehow, but the film leaves things ambiguous, either intentionally or I was just still busy being annoyed at some of the frustrating character decisions. Even though the concept itself feels somewhat fresh, the movie quickly becomes very predictable, which for me drained much of the tension as things unfolded. I also have one oddly specific gripe: the sound of Dolly breathing through the mask. It is constant and mixed so prominently into the audio that it becomes distracting. At times, it felt like Nosferatu had wandered into the sound booth and was just like, We also have another character introduced at the end who doesn't even feel like a real person. I mean, they just make the character's actions so stupid that I'm convinced they were in it just to frustrate viewers. Overall, the movie is playing with this idea of creating Stockholm Syndrome with our antagonist hoping to have something they never were able to. There's enough in Dolly that I think people will have a fun watch with it, but it definitely suffered from typical slasher tropes and plot convenience that to me ended up causing frustration, making it predictable, and just an okay watch. That all said, this is just my opinion and it's a small budget horror movie, so go support it. All right, guys, that wraps up this review for Dolly. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. It really does help. If you're into physical media, especially VHS, I license horror movies for VHS, and they are available on frightgasm.com. As always, get your fright on, and I'll see you in the next review.